All right, everybody. Welcome to another fantastic episode here, season 2 of the No Brainer Show. You can find us on all the socials, No Brainer Shows on YouTube. I am D-Rec, and I am your primary host tonight. Zach is missing with us tonight. He's actually in the hospital with some health stuff going on. So I've got him kind of on the mobile right here, but we'll miss him and be praying for him. So we have a fantastic guest with us here tonight. It is, don't crucify me if I pronounce it wrong, it's Nathan Baws, correct?
Spot on.
Usually Zach does the intros and he gets the name wrong, and it's my turn to kind of rip him right there, but I get the opportunity to kind of set everything straight there. So coming to you live from sunny Central Florida, and our guest Nathan here, I believe is, why don't you introduce yourself and where you're from? I got an idea, but I'm pretty sure, judging by the blackness in the windows there, you're in a completely different time zone than me.
It is rather early over here, 6 a.m. So I'm in Perth, Western Australia. So, the sun hasn't quite come out yet, but that's okay.
So why don't you introduce yourself a little bit? Tell us about what you do. I've got a lot of notes here, but I want to kind of you to lay the land and kind of just tell us what you've been up to, man.
Yeah, business. I love anything related to business and entrepreneurship in any shape or form. I've been involved in lots and lots of businesses over the years, and up to about 19 now that I've done. Some that have been hugely unsuccessful, and some that have been pretty amazing. So it's been a bit of a mix, a bit of a journey. Started at 6 years old with my first business, which didn't make any money, but introduced me to the business world. And from there, I've done all sorts of industries, very, very different industries. And I just find there's a lot of different problems out there, and business is a great way to solve a few of those solutions and get paid for doing it. So it's kind of an amazing opportunity. And there's just so many opportunities out there that I find on a daily basis. So narrowing it down, just keeping a little bit more structured is half my challenge, but it's just so much fun. It's a hugely fun journey in the business world, I find. Yeah.
So do you think any of our first businesses ever made any money, or were we trying to just maybe solve the problems of the day, right? We get a lot of advice from serial entrepreneurs about solving problems and making a solution for people. What was your first business, and what would you say you learned from it?
A lot of lessons, actually, from my first business. So at 6, I had no idea how business was and how to make money. As a matter of fact, I thought making money, and this will show you how little I knew about business, I thought actually making money was physically making coins and notes. I thought that's what making money was all about, because I knew I wanted to make money, but had no idea. And as you do, most people have no idea about money or finances or business when they first start. So I got together with my cousin, and we ran a business. Our very first business only lasted a couple of hours, but it gave me a massive introduction to the business world. And we had no idea. First of all, I was staying at my cousin's farm, and I said, at the end of this 1 week stay, Jerem, I want to make some money. And I said, Mum just serves me potatoes all the time, and because they're cheap, but I'm sick of eating potatoes. I want to eat a steak, and I need to make some money so I can help her pay for some food. So single parent, etc. So
was your thing like, hey, were you with your mom or your dad?
I was living with my mum, single sole parent at that stage.
So were you the man of the house who basically at the ripe old age of 6, you said, hey, we're peeling potatoes, but I'm going to be the man here and go out and fetch us a steak with my endeavors? Was that the kind of the mentality you think you had at that age?
I guess it was, but I don't think I've thought that deeply about it, other than I'm sick of freaking potatoes and I need to make a change. Just at that age, you can't do a job. I didn't even know about jobs, but it was just like, how do you make money? It's just like asking that question, and we scratched our heads for a while. We actually tried finding something that looks like money initially. So we looked around the farm and we found beer bottle lids, and we thought, oh, that looks a bit like a coin. Maybe we can write 20 cents on it, etc., and make some money that way. But soon found out realized that wasn't the way to go. So we scratched our heads again and said, well, what are we good at? Maybe there's a skill we can bring and sell and monetize. We didn't quite know those words at that stage, but it was more about how do we make some money. So we worked out that we were both pretty good at making paper aeroplanes. So perhaps we could make that into a business, and that's what we tried to do. So we set up on the side of a paddock in the middle of a farm in the middle of nowhere, and we had this table and we made bunches of paper aeroplanes, and we sat there and waited for our riches to come in, our fortunes to follow. So we sat there, and then we were there for about an hour or two and nothing happened. I think there was probably one car that passed in that time. And then I turned to Jeremy, my cousin, and said, hey, mate, I think we're doing this all wrong. I think what we need is, why we're not making money is, well, we don't have big enough buckets to put all the cash in. So why don't you go out the back and grab a whole bunch of buckets and bring them back out, and then we'll make money because we'll have somewhere to put it all in. Again, didn't really pan out. So 2 hours later, two cars had driven past, and not one of them had stopped to buy any of our paper airplanes. So after that, we realized customers, like being around customers, human life form, was kind of important for business, so we could sell someone something. And signage, we had no signage, so people just probably thought we were just having a bit of fun out the front and doing a hobby. So those are lessons that I definitely have applied to every business that I've been involved in since then. Really focusing on communicating what we do immediately to customers, through signage, through language, through anything we can, displays, and finding where big hordes of people hang out and our ideal customer lives, so we can go directly and plug into that more significant customer base rather than being out there in the middle of nowhere.
So needless to say, when you place a brick and mortar nowadays, you go through all this work with your commercial realtor typically, where, you have actual foot traffic, you have vehicle traffic, and a tool we use in the US, and I don't know if it's true in Australia or not, but a tool like realtors will use is something like LoopNet, right? It's kind of like a Zillow for commercial. And needless to say, this was probably pre-LoopNet days, where you probably didn't calculate the actual traffic going by in the road, and maybe probably not. I probably wouldn't have either, too. That's at least about 35 for that. But I'm guessing too, at that point, you probably didn't have what you might call a go-to-market strategy either, where you have a purpose and you have a not only a delivery and a demographic, but a way to do that and to go to market. But that's interesting. It's kind of a twist on the lemonade stand that we think we're gonna.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. No, I never tried the lemonade stand. I should have.
Yeah, maybe it would have worked, but I can't say. Maybe the success probably wouldn't have been amplified with a couple cars, maybe. But so growing up, so you grew up in Western Perth, like where you are now. Yeah. Was it still relatively the same? So potato farm. That was your cousin, your uncle and aunt that owned that farm.
It wasn't a potato farm. It was just wheat and sheep that they grew. But the beauty was, I used to like to go and stay there because I was getting away from the potatoes. I knew that there was no potato. They weren't a big fan on potatoes. They ate other food, so that was a bonus when I would stay there. So we tried the first business together that way. Yeah.
So then kind of take us to your journey here. I have limited information about you. I've obviously done some research in terms of, your Shark Tank AU and your journey here, but you stayed there, but you had kind of did you go to school as well in Australia, or did you migrated to London, if I'm not mistaken, for a short period as well?
Yeah.
How did that go?
grew up in Western Australia, and the thing with Western Australia, particularly back then, the population was very, very small. So they say if you can create a successful business in Western Australia, you can kind of do it anywhere, because there's just no one to buy your stuff. Um, so yeah, grew up in Western Australia, had a few different jobs, went through the traditional way of in sort of takeaways, but studied health, and I became a naturopath, which is just a natural way of healing the body, diet, nutrition, those sort of things. And so went through a bunch of different businesses, small businesses. The first thing that I actually did was, that I actually made money out of, was an earthworm farm. I realized that people wanted to buy these things, and making my first dollar out of that, breeding and growing earthworms, was very, very exciting when you first make your first dollar. And then went into different things. So at college, we had these, we were given these really super expensive machines called iriscopes, which look at the iris. And the college said, "Oh, you need to go and practice your skill set looking at the iris. You can borrow these for a weekend, each weekend." So I thought, "Oh, fantastic! This is a great business opportunity." So I borrowed one of these machines. I took it to a market and I set up a little stall, and that was how I was practicing making money. So it turned out that I was doing consultations down at the markets and telling people about their health, etc., and getting paid for it. And at that age, I was probably around 18, 19 years old. I started making more money than people were making during a whole week of traditional work
Really?
over a weekend. And I thought, far out, this is amazing. This is, from the paper aeroplane days to actually people paying me lots of money, and it was just incredible. So from there, I built, I studied, finished my studies, went and worked for a guy in pharmacy, learnt for 8 years. I worked for him. He was phenomenal, huge entrepreneur, very, very, very exciting guy, as in he would just try anything and everything. And I ran his health departments in his 8 pharmacies for 8 years, and learnt so much. And then
And that was
going,
Star Health, correct?
yeah, that's right. Yeah. You have
What
done your
so you
research.
spent a lot of time in naturopath. Like
Hmm.
what got you into wellness? And I mean, what okay, so if you were to ask me like, hey, what interests you about supplements and natural health cures, and I would have a couple reasons. One, I just enjoy the study of hormones, and two, um, you know, big pharma drug in the US is just a big business. It's just a cycle to get you. So I would almost have like a negative connotation with the other side of things to say, okay, well, I do have a passion for supplements and that type of stuff. What was it for you? Was it an event, or was it just something you grew up being interested in? Was it a fitness thing? What really got, because it's you spent a lot of time there.
Yeah. Mum, back to my potato feeding mother, she also fed me a lot of alfalfa sprouts. So she was also a very, very alternative mum. So we grew up in that space, and it was a natural progression to study it. We used to see naturopaths when we were kids. So it was just a natural process. And I guess it was pretty quick before I realized that exchanging time for money was kind of a limiting factor as well. So being paid by the hour was good as a starting point, but you get to a point where you want to grow and scale, and so that's when I went into, I built a health shop, and then that went really well, and then I built two more health shops. Built another one, took over another one that was losing money, and turned that around in about 6 months to start making some money, and then scaled from there. Talking about vitamins and supplements, I created a small brand of vitamins that I sold across Australia, and that went pretty well. So I was in that space for about 7 years after I left pharmacy. So 8 years in pharmacy, and then about 7 additional in the health industry.
Do you
So
still have interest there? I mean, would you still consider that like a passion of yours?
definitely a passion. Yeah, yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, here in the U.S., I notice like when I travel abroad, and I have not yet been to Australia, and that is a shame. Uh, could make a lot of excuses for that. They could be COVID, they could be world related, but when we do go, we notice here, being in the United States, it's just such a mass production, high chemical, high hormone food environment to where pretty much anything you eat here, you just don't feel good at all. You just
Mm,
feel awful. You can feel it. Like a carbohydrate isn't the same. The nitrates and or I'm sorry, the preservatives in like meat is just horrible. The nitrates and alcohol, like it's just pretty much anything you eat here. And scientifically, we're seeing specific types of cancer that used to be, like colon cancer, an old person's thing in the 60s, 70s, drift down to like people in their 40s now.
mm,
And I notice traveling abroad, almost anywhere we go, the quality of the food is so much more, I would guess, more hormone free, more chemical free, more natural, and you
real.
can just
Yeah.
you can feel it when you put it in your body. Have you experienced any of that? Do you I guess, have you had any experiences like that? Have you been to the US where you're just like, I don't feel good with the type of food I'm eating, or maybe fast food chains that have drifted over there? Do you see any of
Um,
that where you are? Like, I mean, it's
yeah,
just really, it's an epidemic here. It's unbelievable.
it
It almost
is.
feels like we're being poisoned here.
Yeah, I mean, even if you just look at the sugar content that people are eating, it is phenomenal.
Hmm.
In Australia, on average, we're eating about 14 teaspoons of sugar every day, and that's
I'm just
not
going to
good.
convert that for the audience, but how many grams in a teaspoon?
Yeah, good question. Is it 5 or 10? Um,
4.2. So you said
Five.
14. So that's
Yeah,
60 grams of sugar. So I,
but
that's
if you,
that's your average there. The U.S. would probably say, "Hold my beer." If you've
yeah,
heard
yeah, US
that, it's
34.
probably triple.
34 teaspoons. So 34 times 5, whatever that is, that's a lot.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's massive.
Wow.
And then you've got all the additional carbohydrates that are coming on top. There is no wonder. And there's so much research out there now with the link of carbohydrates, high refined carbohydrates in particular, and all the disease states, cancer,
Mm-hmm.
Alzheimer's, Parkinson, heart disease. There's inflammation in the body, like arthritic conditions. So yeah, it is no wonder, and people are just addicted, and sugar
Do you
is
find it do you find it astonishing that something as simple as sugar addiction is one of the primary fueling agents of cancerous cells? Do you find it astonishing that what should be layman baseline messaging is overlooked or not pronounced, right? Because maybe call me a conspiracy theorist, but I'm convinced we don't want to find the cures for some of
oh,
these things
100%.
because without claiming to cure them, I think there are simple things that help them a lot. And for example, like let's say you have a bunch of cells that are becoming cancerous and they need to be fed to grow. If you fasted for 3, 4 days and made that a regular part of your habit and cut out refined sugar, I'm not saying that's your cure, but I'm saying that whatever your genetics allow, that's probably your best natural source to fight it. And that's just a normal, truthful statement. But I don't know if you would ever hear people, and I'm saying talking this just because of your position in naturopathy versus the medical world. I don't feel like you would hear a lot of medical professionals preach anything of that nature, and I don't think it's off base.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, it's out of control. And that was one of the reasons I left the health industry, because there was so much politics involved in it, so many
Hmm.
drug companies involved in discrediting all that natural medicine. I mean, in back in the early 2000s, we had something called the pan pharmaceutical recall, which was just devastating in the health industry. It was where the pharmaceutical companies got involved and wanted to totally disrupt the natural health industry, which they constantly want to do anyway. But they put all this negativity. They produced all this false evidence about the biggest Pan pharmaceutical company, which was the biggest producer of natural vitamins in Australia. They put out about $200 million a year worth of vitamins, which were about 70% of the shelf space for all vitamins. And they stimulated this mass recall. So all these vitamins across the whole of Australia were ripped off the shelf and disposed of as apparently being tainted and dangerous, and all these sort of claims that they were sweeping up rubbish and putting them into the vitamin pills. And, it was just so much
That's
BS.
wild.
Yeah.
That's wild.
They bankrupt the company. And so there was a mass shortage of vitamins across the whole of Australia. And and it was all over the media, all over the main, front pages of the newspapers. And then 2-3 years later, I saw in the newspaper this tiny column saying Pan Pharmaceuticals have been dispelled of all issues, all related to this massive recall. So they bankrupt the company, and no one, and then they just, this tiny freaking column that everyone would have missed. So I mean, I was happy to be out of that, all that BS. Quite frankly, there's just so much.
And then more recently too, during this little event that we all had a few years ago, and I'm not even going to say labels of anything just because the algorithm hates these things, but this little event the world had a few years back that had to do with our health.
Yes,
we had a lot of stuff going on here where, similar to what I said about like cancer and sugar earlier. There's certain supplemental things for your health that doing will put your body in as good of an immune state as your genetics will allow, and those things are the vitamin C's and the vitamin D's and, the boron and the zinc and your sleep and your exposure to sunlight, just number of simple things. And the truth of the industry behind that is the money isn't there. And so we had a whole, I don't want to say propaganda, but we had a whole narrative here of, well, let's not talk about those things, but let's promote unhealthy things, smoking and eating greasy food. But as long as we do the medical thing we're supposed to do, everything will be fine. And that drove me nuts because, in a world where those two things are fighting against each other, I don't see it. I think they work together. I think I'm a total, medical driven person, mother with grew up with a mother who was a registered nurse, and she was in the field for over 40 years, and had an interest of natural stuff myself, in my 20s primarily and 30s. And I was baffled how those two things couldn't get along. And then that's when I really realized that, the world always has been, always will be about money in some cases. And when you mix that with people's health as a priority, that's when I get upset.
true.
You know what I'm saying? Like
100%.
you don't
Yeah.
place profit above people. Profit is business, but people's safety, people's security, people's well-being, people's transparency always come first. And so,
Well,
yeah,
ethically,
it's a shame about those things. Let's put it that way. They can live together. They really can.
They can, and I mean ethically. And if you do have that outlook in business, there are ways of actually doing that ethically and having ethical businesses that, still make money, but they actually do good as well. So I think that's one of the key things that should be driving us when we're in businesses. Because there's a lot of negative. I mean, particularly right now, right in the world, there's some crazy crap going on, and some would say it's very money motivated, but I just don't think that's the only way to go. There is ways of doing it for the good of the world and feeling good about what you're doing in business and getting people good results rather than literally dropping bombs on people. So yeah,
You could literally do what's right for people and still provide solutions that they
get
find
rewarded.
valuable. I think
Absolutely.
so. I
Yeah.
think so.
Yeah.
So you are you are involved in so many things. I mean, I see Shark Tank. I see Tommy Sugo, which they go together, correct?
Correct.
Your
Shark Tank.
restaurant endeavors,
Yeah.
and then obviously stuff that you're focused on now with your coaching and your tourism type of stuff. Where is your focus right now? Where are you really trying to grow?
It's kind of there, like shotgun. That's where my focus is everywhere. Um, but the main, I guess, daily activities that I focus on are Tommy Sugo, which is a West Australian brand of pasta. We manufacture pasta, and we've got about 8 different channels that goes through. So we're always looking for new ways of getting the same product out there. Be it wholesale or catering or restaurants or retail, and a whole bunch of other things, gifting. So that takes up a lot of time. That's a really fun business, which we're getting some really lovely
Is
growth.
the what's the go to market? I mean, is it the fact that it's delivery? Is it the fact that the pasta is made with certain ingredients? What is your pitch here? Because I didn't see the Shark Tank where you did that. I'd like to kind of know
Yeah.
what sets that apart. Why is that a passion of yours?
Yeah, cool. Bringing the health background into it, so we don't have any artificial anything in our product. So that's quite good, which I get very excited about. And then also flavor. I mean, everyone claims that their product is tastier than the next person's, but we're quite a premium end of the market, probably the most expensive. Our lasagna, for example, is around $40, whereas you can get a lasagna in the supermarket for around $13, that sort of thing, same size. But it's what doesn't go into the product and what does go into it that makes a huge difference in flavor and nutritionally, that we focus on. And yeah, just delivery to market. So we do home deliveries, we do supermarkets. Now we're moving more into the wholesale supermarket space, and just getting excited and passionate. So the brand is growing really nicely. We get some sort of strong brand recognition now, which is lovely. Being on Shark Tank, when we were on Shark Tank, the main angle we were working on was restaurants. I built one restaurant and that went really well. So I thought, let's do more. So I did another 2, and then soon found out I was losing a lot of money going down that channel. So I had to pivot, and we went more into retail and getting rid of the headaches of running restaurants, which I was happy to move out of. And but
All those hidden costs, right? That like just the headache of having to deal with all of the overhead with that and the
overheads,
management of the
rents,
people.
and
Yeah.
and so many moving parts.
Yep.
Very staff heavy. And now I really focus on businesses that are very staff light and a lot more automated and systemized, and a lot more scalable without humans.
So do you
Unfortunately,
have any, the product being the lesser more is more concept to me says, well, I don't have a lot of garbage in my food that preserves it. Is that true? I mean, how do you have any issues with distribution and um, channel management with
ah,
the shelf life of your product? I mean,
yeah,
because
yeah,
we all have a trade out, like in Europe, in the U.S., you go to the grocery store, actually have your groceries delivered right to your fat front door for a month's worth of groceries that you haul into your house and fit into a small closet. And everything expires 6 years from now. I'm
yeah,
being a little bit dramatic just for the
yeah,
effect, but and then in modern Europe, you go to the market with a little basket every other day, and you pick out,
right, yes,
your
yes.
it's less preservative, it's better for you. But now you're into like channel distribution. What are the main factors there that you got to think about to maintain the actual value and premium nature of your product without um, compromising your shelf life? I mean,
Good
what are
question.
the
Yeah,
yeah?
yeah,
Does that make
yeah.
sense?
Yeah, 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 definitely. Well, we're actually a frozen product, so we're not a fresh product. We're a frozen product. And when we were first going into that space many years ago, I was a bit concerned that people would be all after the fresh ones. What I'm discovering, and have over the past 14 years that we've been running that business, is that people don't care if it's fresh or frozen. They do care if it's got rubbish added. And In fact, frozen is now becoming more of a thing because it's a convenience and everyone's
Hmm.
time poor. So if you can just pull a lasagna or some arancinis or some raviolis out of your freezer, cook it from frozen, you got a meal in 6 minutes without any rubbish, tastes absolutely phenomenal, then that's a huge win to a lot of busy parents and you know, people out there that have are very time limited. So our distribution is all frozen, and it avoids gas flushing and it avoids preservatives. And you know, at college when we're at naturopathy college, we learned that freezing and canning were the best forms of preserving food without rubbish needing to be added to them. So I think people are starting to understand that now. And being that we are a premium product but frozen, it takes a little bit of time for some of the customers to get their head around that because they're used to frozen microwave meals that taste like crap, and they do still have a
Pizza,
lot of
frozen
yeah,
pizza.
frozen pizza. And there's not too many gourmet, like frozen and gourmet, those two words don't generally go
They don't
together.
go together at all. We
No.
have a we have a you would hate this guy, but we have a really Americanized pizza review system. Pizza homemade pizza making and reviewing has just, don't ask me why, exploded here in the last year. And we have a owner of a company, Barstool Sports, by the name of Dave Portnoy, who has been doing these clusters of pizza reviews across the United States for years now. And of course, during the pandemic, he did the frozen at home. And now it's just this huge algorithm thing on YouTube where, you know, you see people making their own pizza and you see restaurants, you know, Michelin star chefs quitting to start pizza places, you know, because the dough is such a um it's everything
Yes.
in the process.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
a big part of that is like, how do you get a frozen pizza to taste good, right? Because the yeast, the rising in the dough is such a part that's difficult to emulate in the freezer. Do you do pizza, or is it just like lasagna, spaghetti? Is it just like noodle based stuff where you don't have that same concern?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It is more. I mean, we've got about 50 lines, 50 different products. We don't do pizza, so we don't have those concerns. But and our products freeze incredibly well, so we're lucky from that perspective. But it's even interesting. A lot of frozen food have an ingredient which is an antifreeze ingredient added to their food, which we absolutely would never. But it's interesting when you see a bit of frost, like, you know, almost like snow on your product, and people get put off by that if it's been in the freezer for a week or two, and people get put off by that. And I say, look, get excited when you see that because it means there's no antifreeze. The same crap that they put into car engines and motors to stop cars freezing over in winter, they put this crap into food. And so if you see a little
Like
bit of
it's similar
ice,
chemicals to that,
identical, yeah,
identical chemicals to that.
yeah,
So you
yeah,
do you,
yeah.
do you, do you term that as freezer burn?
Yeah, yeah. So get
So
excited
freezer burn is
because
good.
it is good. It's
So you
very
came on
good.
this show specifically for one item, was to change everyone's viewpoint on freezer burn, because anytime I've ever heard that term, that's been a
Yeah,
negative connotation, right? Oh, it's got
absolutely.
freezer burn. It's no good. It might
Yeah,
not taste good. That's good. You're
that's
saying
good.
that's
It's a
good.
good starting point.
Wow.
Absolutely, it's a good
I got
starting
a lot
point.
of
So,
learning to do.
so read the ingredients and check. I mean, if it's got the ice on it, you know, generally it's a good natural sign because you put anything in the freezer and it gets ice on it, that's good. I mean, that's how you put meat in, whatever. That's how it should be. But if you, it's like a McDonald's burger, right? You always see YouTube videos of how long a McDonald's burger has survived
Oh,
out of the
lordy
out of
lord.
the fridge, you know, for years on end.
Years.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you got to ask those questions of how is that possible? If you put a natural piece of meat and some bread
It's
out,
not. There's something wrong with that. That's not. We'd say that's not right. We have one of our largest retailers in the States is Walmart. I'm sure you
yeah,
probably
yeah,
heard, right? So, and I'm
yeah,
not bashing Walmart. We shop at Walmart. Walmart actually has a lot of great things, a lot of great natural and local source thing, but they also have a quite a large mass production brand, and there are certain items, flowers, for instance, that will last weeks.
Oh,
And that's one thing we notice in the house. Like we typically it's not good with the edible stuff, but there's living things such as like flowers and shrubbery, and they live through the craziest conditions, and you're like, there is something not right about this plant.
wow.
Like it's got something in it. It's not natural. It can't be a natural thing because it should be wilted by now, and they just
Yes,
seem to
yes,
last forever. So that's
yes,
that's it's
yeah.
scary to think that's the stuff we put in our bodies. Big
Yeah,
Macs and oh.
there was an article that just came out in the newspaper over here about uh, pesticides in the Australian farming community. And it was something like 75 different chemicals that we use in Australia have been banned in most other countries. And given, we have some pretty harsh conditions for farmers. We've got very low rainfall. We've got pest problems and different things that they have to deal with. But the fact that the majority of these chemicals that we use in our farming and in our food process are banned for obvious reasons, because they're quite dangerous to our health, and other countries have recognized that. But we haven't, unfortunately. And the stories that I hear of so many people when they say, oh, no, I can't eat certain foods. There's a lot of that going on in Australia. I can't eat this, can't eat that. So many people got these allergies to everything all of a sudden.
And
And,
that's a recent development. Like you've seen that more so in the
oh,
last decade or two. You're
very,
right.
yeah,
So
yeah. I
doctors
mean,
start these diets of elimination and trying to really isolate different
mm,
variables and things, right, to find out what those allergies may be. Because it's like,
correct.
wait, hold on, you're allergic to like yeast, or like what? Like things just come up where it's like it's so much more commonplace than it used to be. Like people used to have a gluten allergy, or they had like celiac disease, and it's very serious. And now in the last decade or two, it's like everybody has it. It's like, well, why does
Correct.
everybody have that? Is it
Yeah.
like, are we just wimpy, or are we like becoming what we're programmed, or is there something wrong going on with the things we consume? And maybe it's a little bit of every single thing, but you got to
Mm,
wonder what's in what you're eating. It can't be
mm,
right.
mm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it's changed. You're right, and there's lots of different things that are causing that. We've had we've genetically changed the grain so it becomes more drought resilient and things like that, and that all has an impact. And so much so that when we have a lot of customers that can't eat gluten, and we do a gluten-free range, but a lot of them say when they go to Italy, they're absolutely fine eating gluten. And to me, that's more about the sprays and the chemicals that they are not using compared to what we are using. So, yeah, it all has a compounding impact on our health, unfortunately.
Yeah, we definitely have. Yeah, we've got a million similarities here that we go through. So,
Mm.
um, so are you trying to? I see you've got a podcast and you do public speaking too, correct?
Yeah, yep. Do a fair bit of speaking for schools, do a lot of training for kids. Love that space. That's good fun. Sort of bring Shark Tank to schools. So we do lots of little entrepreneurship lessons, and we play the Shark Tank uh, video that I was involved in, and they get quite excited. Then we help them build little businesses within the school, and then some of the schools will actually take that and create a market, and they can sell their product direct to consumers, so they get that full follow through. And there just needs to be more of that, because
Mm-hmm.
there's not enough entrepreneurship and financial literacy in schools.
Mm-hmm.
It's severely lacking, which is crazy, because I mean the two most important things I reckon on the planet that we should be learning about is, number one is health, and number two is financial education, because they're the two biggest factors. I mean, maybe relationships, that's part of that's quite important as well, but they're the two things that we could be learning more about in school that will just set us up for success in the rest of our life. And strangely, we just don't focus
And those are
enough
the
on it.
things that we usually only get in school, what we're fed. Like, we don't get anything really independent on those topics. Health, you get fed the food pyramid. Okay. And obviously there's differences in Australia and US, but for us, we in school you get a food pyramid, and financial, you get a career day, but you don't ever really get, like, I know in fourth grade, like, we would have to balance a checkbook, now there's not checkbooks. You don't have to balance checkbooks. So, but you still have to balance a bank account, right? There's still things you have to do. You have to know kind of how to budget and how to put these things together. And, um, yeah, it's amazing that we don't naturally focus on that stuff in school, because at the end of the day, like, if you were going to have, we always say this, it's like, oh, okay, everyone told us to be like a doctor or a dentist or a teacher or whatever, in high school, but did everyone ever teach you that this is what the education will cost? This is what the average salary may be. These are the sectors you can get into. This is the return on what you're doing. And here again, sorry, I keep going back because I don't know if these are international aspects, but assuming they are, like, what we had happen here in the US is we had a 10-year period where they shut down trade schools pretty much. Okay. So from '05 to 15, no one was going to a trade school to be a plumber,
Oh,
electrician, air conditioning, HVAC. And here we are, and all of a sudden, we're 10 years after that, and they've opened it all back up. And these guys are making more than the accountants and the bankers and the doctors,
mhm,
because the
mhm,
demand and the inability of people to use their hands is so high. And so literally these people can go to trade school for a very inexpensive price, and they could be earning money
mhm,
right away. And within a few years, they can earn their certifications, their journey, whatever, and they can be an electrician for 60 hours a week, making 300 grand. And
mm.
we didn't make a connection in our high school to say, listen, you want to be a teacher, an elementary teacher, that's fine. If you go to this private university, you're going to spend 100 grand on your education and you're going to make 30 grand. How are you going to pay that investment back? And it was
Yeah.
always like taboo because, well, it's a calling, or it's a passion. Understood, I get it, but like, we have to connect the reality with it too, on what the economic return on it as well. So I feel like, at least when we were going through those things, we didn't have that to say, well, crap. If someone would have told me, I would have been a dermatologist, because the dermatologists I know, after they did all their med school, make 600 grand and work Monday through Thursday, 8 to 3. I mean, why wouldn't I have been a dermatologist? We we didn't. I mean, that forget. The passion is one thing, but the return has to be there too. So, um,
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, did you? I mean, what connected you to that? Like, what made you say this is so important, or this is missing, or I got screwed going to school for something that had nothing to do with what I want to do? Did you experience something like that? What gave you that passion?
I have to admit now, before I go into a business related to what you've just said, it's more about pulling back for 2 seconds, and instead of saying, "Yeah, that's something I can do, so I should do it," I'm more focused on, okay, what's the upside? Let's just pull back a little bit and focus on what's the investment in time, what's the investment in energy, and money, and how physically stuck do I have to be to that business before, if I get involved in that business? How scalable is that business without me? And so now I'm really, really focused on, any time before I pick up any new project, it's asking all those questions. And I don't think I've done that before. And as to what you've just said, I don't think anyone really focuses on that. So, for me, I feel related to what you've just said, passion. A lot of people treat it as a passion project. They're passionate about it, so they pursue it. I think that can be adapted. There's so many things personally that I'm passionate about, and if I can see that I'm helping people and bringing massive value and getting paid and rewarded for that, then I'll be
Hmm.
passionate about it. So
I agree with you. I agree with you. Like, I don't think, like, to me, it was growing up. It was like, once I knew I wanted to be in business, it wasn't about the product or service as much as the passion of
Mm,
delivering it at the highest excellence that I could to provide value to people, and then being able to replicate that and scale that, delegate that, make that systemic. I 100% agree with you. And what I think the generation might not fully understand is there are businesses out there that are so boring that can give you freedom of life. For example, I mean, find a business like hauling junk or doing electrical work, and there's some specialty to get into it. But then there's ways
laundromats are big now, aren't they, for that?
exactly car washes, things,
Yeah, yeah,
vending machines,
yeah,
ATMs, blah blah blah.
yeah.
They're all boring, and I,
Mm,
I I preach this to my team nonstop. I go, success is boring.
right.
Success isn't sexy. It's boring. It's what are the repeatable executional tasks that can be done by
Mm,
a standard by people to deliver excellence and value repeatably nonstop that you can put on cruise control to provide you the income to buy your time back. And
right.
that's
Beautiful.
that's wealth, that's success,
Mm,
that is
mm,
freedom, right? The things
so,
in freedom. And I was going to ask you that too. Like I literally have this written down. Which job would you recommend to get you to financial freedom quickest? Most people say sales because you can earn commission. Let's say you take a high end sales job and you can work 60 hours a week and make $1 million off commission. And then you can live off 100 and invest 900K into those boring, not sexy businesses, car washes and laundromats and things that will make those repeatable income happen for you. Like, do you know what I mean? Like there's a certain time you have to be tied to something to create those systems and create
mm,
that cash flow
yes,
to
yes.
feed into those things that are boring that will feed you for life to give you your time and your freedom where you want it to be.
Mm, mm. Well, that's one of the things that I feel you need to look at when you're working on decision making for where you go with a business, and that is, how much upfront time do you have to put into it before you can pull back, and
Hmm.
what level of involvement do you need to build the systems and the SOPs and create the operating manual so that you can pull back. And then, so is it a massive, are we creating, I was looking at a business, we were talking about creating this crazy concept yesterday in a particular industry, with this actually in a meals and weight loss program that we're looking at doing. Integrating, I run a weight loss program in Indonesia in a few hotels over there, and I was looking at bringing that back into Australia and doing some crazy stuff with that. But the infrastructure in time and systems and processes and setting it all up, it's going to be massive. So yeah, what is the time involvement before you can pull back from that heavy intensive period of the build of the startup. So yeah, I think it's key to start looking at all those things before you jump on board with a
I
decision
mean,
that.
I'm convinced you did the hotel wellness just so you could travel for a business right off for the rest of your life. I mean, I've got
Ah,
that's what I would do. I got to applaud that big time. I mean, that's kind of interesting.
yeah,
Like, I don't mean to throw you off topic, but the tourism wellness industry.
good fun, good
That
fun.
sounds like some nightmares that are worth it eventually.
Yeah, well, that
Like
one is
that
a
sounds like
fun.
fun eventually.
The way I came up with that one was I was on holidays in Thailand with my family, and we're staying in. There was about 10 of us, and we're staying in this beautiful hotel resort. And I thought, geez, like I had a conversation with the general manager, and I said, "Hey, what are you doing in the wellness space? You've got all these amazing facilities. You got pools, you got gyms, you got great food, lovely beds to sleep in for good recovery. So what are you doing? I mean, this is just so ripe to be in that space." And he said, "Well, funny enough, we're not really in that space, but would love to be, and as every hotel would love to be, because the clientele that come for that wellness journey is a much more affluent, better paying
I was
clientele."
going to say that's a pretty high end portion of tourism because like the stuff
Mm,
this is a crazy idea. This is a great idea because I don't know if you noticed, I'm sure you did, but like here in the States, we have that, but it's not like it's not like someone would go to the resort and implement a program. It's that these resorts are created for these programs. So the investment is immense, and they're like almost for like celebrities only, rehab and wellness resorts. And it almost sounds like you're taking a program into an existing,
Correct. Yeah.
relatively high end resort, and even, maybe increasing their value proposition without this massive capital investment, to create the resort before it even exists.
That's pretty much the pitch that we do. So
That is
exactly right.
awesome.
Yeah, yeah. So I said to the general manager, why don't look? I've been involved in weight loss programs in Australia. Why don't I just build one and we'll slot it into your resort? And he said, that sounds fantastic. Let's do that. So I went back to Australia, built this concept, came back, and I said, right, ready to rock and roll. And he said, oh, okay, no worries. We just have to jump through a few hoops. This because of this resort is owned by different levels of companies. Have to put it through to them, and that just took so much time, and nothing ever happened. Nothing panned out. And I thought, well, I've created this great program. Why don't I just tweak it a little bit and adapt it so I can put it into any hotel around the world and bring massive value, de-risk it. Any offer that I make, I always try and find a way of absolutely eliminating all risk so that we get a much better uptake a lot quicker. So I pitched it to 2 years ago. I went to Bali. I've set up 7 meetings with 7 different resorts over there. Went round, pitched it to everyone, said it's going to be zero risk. You don't pay me anything up front. Once that first custom comes in, we do a profit share. So there's no risk. I can fully set it up for you. And out of the 7 hotels that I visited, 6 of them immediately said, yes, let's do it. And I thought, oh, wow, I think we're on something here. So that's what I've been doing, and setting it up even in some 3-star hotels that they find value in it. But it was, it's good.
And you're
Good fun
utilizing all of their own existing facilities
infrastructure.
and
Yeah, yeah,
staff as well. I mean,
correct.
obviously you probably have remote support, right?
Exactly right. We
Okay.
have been doing it so that I or one of my team members have been doing the consultation side with the client, with the guest that's losing the weight that's on the program. But again, looking at the scalability of that, that's very, very capped. So now we're looking at different ways of de, de dehumanizing it, let me say. So automating it, systemizing it so that
Sure.
either their team can look after that process and we just train their team, or doing a bit of AI stuff as well.
Now, I'm assuming these programs are like the hotel isn't changing its entire focus to be only weight loss tourism, but so this is an extra program someone can. Are any of these resorts thinking of using this as a stepping stone to increase their uh, I don't know the terminology, but to go from
Footprint
a
in
3 to a
that.
4 star, like do they see, is there connection to their value proposition at the end that you think is valuable? Because I think I'd have never owned a hotel, unfortunately, but I would think I would be like, I don't want to always be at the upper end of that, depending on where you are, obviously, your location. It's like you don't want to be a $2 million house in a neighborhood full of $100,000 houses, obviously, but you
Yeah.
do want to increase your bottom of the funnel, your profitability per se. Are any of these using this as a kind of a prestige uplifting type of program?
Definitely using it as another offering to get another type of client, that the guests staying there that they wouldn't have access to otherwise. So I don't know if they're specifically using it to go up in stars, but for example, one hotel that we just connected with last week, they are a weddings hotel in Bali. So they focus almost 100% on weddings and events. And they want to diversify a little bit so that they're not just reliant on that industry, which is good to do. So they reached out to me and said, "Oh, we want to get into that wellness space. We recognise it is a very profitable space to be in because the average consumer pays about 33% more for a wellness stay than they do in a standard stay." And so they're attracting a better type of clientele, but they're attracting an additional type of clientele to what they would normally bring in. And then when they bring it in, that guest stays for a lot longer. So their traditional stay might be 2 or 3 days. That might be their average stay. But with a weight loss program, it would be a 7-day stay. And they have all the meals factored in, and they can sell all the additional services like
I mean,
massage
that's
and
massive. Isn't a hotel's number one KPI like uh,
mm,
capacity, right? I mean, how
mm,
what percentage you're full at any given
occupancy.
time, right?
Yeah,
Occupancy.
yeah,
Sorry, thank you for
yeah,
that
yeah,
very
yeah.
advanced terminology that I don't have in my current repertoire. And then you can ship them all of the Tommy Sugo products, right?
Well, look, life's a balance. Tommy Sugo's, we're going to get him nice and plump, and then we'll send him over to the weight loss program and see. Uh, yeah,
I
but
don't
that's
know.
all right.
Better food quality gives you what you need though to perform. Like, for example, if I eat a loaf of bread and have a beer here, I look like I'm 20 pounds heavier. If I eat a loaf of bread and a beer in Munich, I go for a 6 mile walk and I feel fantastic. So
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't.
yeah,
I mean, there's micro macronutrients and calories and all that stuff, but the ingredient quality itself, I think, is a bigger deal than what people even
you're
realize.
right.
Even at this
You're right.
stage in the future, I think it's such a huge deal of what your body can convert of energy and digest. But um,
True, true.
that's
Yeah,
cool, man. I like that a lot. I don't know why. That just kind of, I think that's really cool
maybe
that you thought of that.
maybe you can help us in the US partnership over there for some setting up some hotels there.
I think it's crazy because I think US is very focused internal programs on not necessarily health but spa care. So for example, so we go on a lot of cruises, my wife and I, and the cruises will have their own spa, and they're not owned by the cruise line, but they're
Mm,
licensed. So with Disney Cruise Line, they have Senses Spa, and Senses Spa isn't just specifically in Disney Cruise; it's in other places too. So it's not even fully owned by Disney; it's licensed to use there. And if we want to go and just get a massage one day or just use a facility one day, I mean, standard protocol is, the staff takes you in and they do a full hour or two sampling of all of the spa services. And dude, this is a cruise, right? What do you think a spa would have on a cruise? Just tell me one or two services that come to mind. Just what would come to mind?
massage and manicures and pedicures and things like that, I guess.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Now let's throw in any type of bodily hair removal, including
Right.
laser. Let's
Yep.
throw in cosmetic procedures. There's a
Yeah.
cosmetic tourism industry, and even in the non-invasive space, if you go into a senses spa, you have access to cupping therapy, acupuncture, Botox, um,
Wow.
retinal therapy, red light therapy, in other fillers, and all these things that you would find in the cosmetic. So in the U.S., you see a lot of that. And then as far as like weight loss, I think the wellness and weight loss is they group it more almost like rehab, more like where they create resorts for that. But the price is just typically astronomical for those programs
Mm.
too. Um, just based on domestic travel, what you're doing. I don't know. It seems like an opportunity here too, just because everyone who's
Mm.
investing in that is investing all of the capital in the infrastructure and the facilities, and it's like,
They're just
why
not
shouldn't
utilizing it.
I don't think so. I
Yeah.
don't think
Yeah.
so. I don't think
And I
so.
think from what I've heard, there might be one or two people that are a little bit weight challenged in the US as well, right?
So you're being nice. Yes, we are. We are. The term would be fat ass. We are a nation of absolute obesity. I don't even have the statistics, but percentage wise,
We're there
people who
too.
would be
We're
considered,
there.
it's got to be high 30s, if not low 40s at this point.
Mm.
It's very
Mm.
bad. And I would go right back to food ingredients and nutrients. Food is one of the most addicting things we have here.
Mm.
And the crazy part is we're going through a phase now, politically and administratively, where we're removing certain chemicals in our food that anywhere around the world wouldn't even have. And it's not even about the health concerns primarily for these ingredients as much as it is as just the pure addiction to the food. So health production in the US, yes, it's about profitability and preservation, but the reality is those ingredients are not the primary drivers of profitability. The chemicals, the primary purpose of the chemicals is the addiction to the volume consumption of that food. I mean, just
Mm,
stop and think about that. That's sinister. Is that not sinister?
Oh yeah,
Like
yeah. The
we
hidden
are,
ingredients.
our food production is geared for you to eat more volume.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not that red 40 is an addictive ingredient. It's geared for the food to be aesthetic and tasting and addicting. That's what it's
A funny
for.
story related to that. I was
It's
in Vegas a few
wild.
years ago,
Yeah.
and you guys got some pretty amazing buffets over there in
Oh, for
Vegas.
sure. It's great.
Yeah, I love a buffet too, but they can be a little bit dangerous. But I was talking to this taxi driver that was driving us home one night, and he said, and he was a big dude. He was a really big guy. And he said, I realized I had a problem with eating when I went back to the buffet 7 times for 7 different serves and then went home and had a couple of sandwiches. So it was like, yeah, that would probably be a telltale sign that, yeah, maybe you need to look at your diet. But
Well,
there's a lot of empty calories in what people are eating. So it doesn't give that
true.
satiety.
True.
Yeah.
True. But I mean, if you look at some people that are, that we have the programs you might see here, like my 600-pound life, or these people that are so large they can't move. Do you
Mm,
know the effort that goes into consuming that amount of food? Like, for me personally, I can gain 20 pounds and lose 20 pounds and fluctuate and understand why. It's just whether I have the resolve to do it or not. It's pretty basic. It's not the knowledge, it's the resolve. But these are people that they're so addicted to what they're putting in that they can't stop. It's the addiction.
mm,
It's the addiction.
mm,
And then also the association of any, okay, something negative is in my life. I associate eating with this. It's the addiction.
mm,
It's
mm,
crazy, man. It's not even like, it's not what you think. It's that people here, food is just as addicting as you would say alcohol or smoking cigarettes.
mm.
Sugar is
Oh yeah.
just as addicting, man.
Oh
It's
yeah.
just as
Yeah,
addicting.
yeah.
And
Highly
the
addictive.
things that we eat here are, you can't stop eating it. It tastes
Mm,
good, right? In your
mm,
mind thinks it wants more and more. So I think that I think the struggle here is more like mass production pharmaceutical related, to where these companies, like, they don't want to lose the volume and the consumption of what they
mm,
have. It's not
mm,
that if they pull these ingredients out they'll lose their profits, they'll lose their volume.
yeah,
That's,
yeah, it's
dude, that's
volume.
scary. That sounds like a horror movie. Like, how do we,
Mm,
you ever seen the movie Wall-E, Disney, the
no.
robot? Okay, well, at the end, there's two movies that happened in the last 20 years in America. One is called Idiocracy, where these people form a society that they can't believe just how stupid they are, and then Wall-E, where the the future society is so fat that we can't even move. We're sitting around on scooters and drinking soda from straws and attached to IV bag. The U.S. has become that. It's actually become those two things, and
We got a lot of
yeah,
work to do over there.
I can
I'm
see why
setting it.
you would. I could see why you would have like passion towards that type of thing, because here it's an absolute epidemic, and I don't
Mm,
think that it's as accessible as what people think on common sense capability to create habits
mm,
and discipline to
mm.
create
There's
a
a lot to
lifestyle
it.
that you can actually do every day because it's balanced and it makes sense and you can use it to um, improve your health. Because food manufacturing doesn't want it here, and big pharma
No,
doesn't want it here. They want you
no.
to be fat and addicted.
Oh, of course. There's so much
Profit
money in
over
it.
people.
But there's so
Oh,
much. There's a lot of psychology and there's a lot of biochemistry in that addiction. So
mhm.
and there is a question of breaking both. And I actually call our program a keto-neurogenic weight loss program. So keto being that we shift the body fuel away from sugar to ketones,
Mhm.
which is a much healthier, cleaner fuel that your body
Which,
can
just so
run
the
on.
audience understands, ketosis is essentially simply the process switching from like a glucose-based energy system to your fat reserve, right?
Correct. Breaking
Okay.
down fat, releasing ketone bodies.
Yep.
and coming with all loads of beautiful side effects, absolutely stunning side effects. When you release ketones, when you take out the body's biggest fuel source, which is sugar and carbohydrates, because we eat it 5+ times a day. So the body's just constantly trying to process all these sugar levels and puts a massive strain on our pancreas and adrenal glands and endocrine system. And again, there's a lot of linked disease to that. But what keto is changing, exactly as you say, we're taking out that big sugar fuel form, and the body goes, oh, there's no sugar. What do we do now? And it looks around for another source of fuel, and it looks at your fat tissue, and it starts breaking down fat cells. And as a byproduct of that, ketones are released into the blood, which are phenomenal for mental cognition, mood elevation, and a whole bunch of other things, energy production predominantly. And with my weight loss program, I bring that into it as Keto-Neurogenic. So the neuro side is all about the mindset and the psychology, and utilizing things like NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. Tony Robbins, you've probably heard of Anthony Robbins. He's a big fan of that. Actually, I co-authored a book with Tony and Brian Tracy. And they are all about this reprogramming the brain, because it's just so easy to be addicted, to keep habits going. So we have to break habits, and we have to reconnect different neural pathways that are more positive, because we've just been indoctrinated by thousands of ads and habits and family and society. All these things have an influence on us. We got to break a lot of crap that goes on in the brain if we're going to get some long-term effects. So changing the biochemistry through keto is really good, because you improve satiety, you eliminate the hunger, and then a lot of eating is habitual. So we just do it because we get bored. And so we have
And
to
most people
work
don't realize too that, when you haven't practiced intermittent fasting and you don't understand how insulin works with responding to glucose, those first 12 to 16 hours where you might not have any, traditional energy-based carbohydrates in your body at all, while your body's getting to ketosis, those hunger pangs are not really hunger pang. It's just insulin. It's just insulin telling you that. Like, people be like to me, like, well, how long can you go without eating? It's like, well, if I'm at home, probably 10 minutes. But if I'm
Yes.
somewhere working and doing an event or
Yes.
serving,
Yes.
I could probably
All day.
go 2 to 3 days if I, because it's
Right.
just not in. It's in that part is programming and conditioning, right? To say, hey, I don't have access to it. It's not on my mind. I don't want to have time to go to the bathroom. I don't have time to eat. I'm not thinking about it. And you can do simple things, maybe like, take a little coffee, some caffeine and water, and just create that satiated feeling. And then those programming parts are just like it's like quitting smoking, right? Like, smoking, there's one part where you're addicted to the nicotine, but then even beyond that, when that goes away, now you're addicted to the habit of getting in your car and cracking the window. Well, what do I do when I'm driving? Like, I don't have that cigarette there and the window down. There's
Right.
two people don't understand. There's two
the
parts
habit,
of that,
right.
and you have to treat it
Yeah.
you have to treat it like addiction in those senses, I think.
Yeah.
Very
It's
similar.
actually,
Yeah.
it's interesting that the whole smoking and sugar. Smoking was really a big thing. All the governments were creating war on it. They were trying to eliminate it. But it's really fascinating to see the stats on smoking versus sugar. When a country is becoming more first world, moving away from the third world sort of economy, and they're becoming a more progressive economy, the smoking consumption of a third world country, although that terminology is probably not politically correct these days, but you know what I mean, like
They invert. They
100%
invert.
invert.
Yeah.
So
No one smokes here anymore, but everyone eats sugar all day.
Exactly. The more sophisticated we become, we realize that smoking is actually no good, so we eliminate smoking.
But in Thailand, everyone's squatted on the ground with a cigarette, but no one's fat.
Yeah. The sugar intake is very, very low compared to when McDonald's comes in and convenience comes in and all this food is
Yep.
just at our fingertips. So smoking goes out the window,
It's
but sugar
incredible.
consumption goes through the roof.
It's like
So,
fitness and alcoholism. Like this isn't always 100% true, but if you notice, like if you ever had a period in your life where you weren't exercising and you wanted to go out and have a couple drinks with friends 2, 3, 4 times a week, and then you go through a period where like you're gonna run or walk every day and lift weights, like there's a period that happens over a couple weeks where it's like you don't even really want the alcohol. Like you're not even like you're like,
mm,
that's a disruption. Like it doesn't even feel attractive to you to want it because you don't want to feel that way. You don't want to be out of
mm,
control. Your body doesn't want it, and then habitually you're like, I don't have time for it. It's the same thing. They're like inverted. These things
yeah,
it's
yeah,
crazy, man, how these relationships are totally inverse. You know what I'm saying?
totally, totally. Yeah, yeah. Once you get
Unbelievable.
into that, and same with ketosis. Once you get in that zone, you're thinking about exercise. You've got the energy to carry through with
You
it,
do, and
and it's
the mental
mm,
clarity is
oh,
unbelievable.
the
Like
clarity is
people,
awesome. Yeah,
I've practiced intermittent fasting on and off for the last 14 years. And I can tell you, I remember the very first days ever doing it in 2012. And like, I'd stop eating at 10 and it was like 2 p.m. the next day. And my wife and I were like painting the condo and I'd be like, I'm starving. I can't believe we're doing this. And then after
yeah,
30 days, you get used to it, blah, blah, blah. And then you do that for
yeah,
5 years. And then you have a period where it's like, I don't feel like doing that anymore. And now like my life is like, at home, I eat too much and I hate it. But then when I'm at the office 3 or 4 days a week, I don't eat at all. No one catches me
yeah.
eating. So like the habit is what I wish I had the
Mm,
habitual part of it at home, but the availability of stuff is what kind
yes,
of keeps my habit that way. But the actual practice, people are like at work, they're like, you never eat, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, I eat. Trust me. Just don't put me around the food. But they're like, how do you do it? And it's like, you can't really explain it, but once you've done it and you understand what your body's doing, and then like I said, the
mm,
little hacks, the water, the coffee, to kind of get you back into the mode, your mental clarity and your focus is just uh next level. It's
yeah,
like it's robotic. They used to call me the machine because it was just like,
mm,
hey, and it wasn't me. It was just the mental clarity that ketosis puts you in. You're
awesome.
20 hours deep into this, and food, what? Like, let's get this done.
Yeah,
Like that's
yeah,
just such a benefit. And I'm convinced too that like if I had a form of cancer, I think, I would go to the doctor and I would do my medical whatever. But the first thing I would do is I would go into straight ketosis right away, man. I would just be like, cancer cells, I'm going to starve you. Like we aren't
yeah,
even going to eat
yeah.
carbs at all ever. And I would just
Yes, yes.
incorporate that because I know what that does. There's so many positive benefits. There's nothing negative with it other than, if you've got some type of diabetes or hormonal issues that you have to just make sure you monitor that system and make sure everything's balanced. But I mean, the positives outweigh so much of that. Like I couldn't preach it enough. It's just, if people don't understand that, they should understand it at least.
Mm, yeah, it's an amazing state to be in for sure. In
Hmm.
that ketosis. Yeah, yeah, and I think the sugar. One of my family members actually was diagnosed with stage 4 terminal cancer, and then he was a big foodie. He was eating a lot of the wrong sort of foods. So we put him onto a keto diet and chemotherapy. He had both together, which I think is absolutely phenomenal. From the limited interactions that I've had with both, because the keto diet makes the cancer cells very, very weak, because obviously cancer cells thrive on sugar. So those cells become weak, and then the chemotherapy, toxic as it is, comes through and just destroys. Yeah, it
They
gives
got
them
no
a good
chance
slap.
against it. They're already
Yeah.
starving.
But the interesting thing is, you mentioned earlier on in this conversation was about, um, the medical system not recognizing sugar as an issue, or, it's probably against their money making strategies not recognize that. But the fascinating thing is, when people go for a PET scan, which is a system which uses radioactive sugar induced put into the body. This sugar floats around the body and it goes to the cancer cells, and the cancer cells are the ones that are really reactive. So they go crazy, they move around and they jump and they party when this sugar is coming into them, because it's just like
So
fuel.
this is to
It's
see a visualization to confirm where it is, the location of the cells.
Yeah, this
Is that
is
what I'm not
exactly
familiar
right.
with it
So
so much. Okay.
Yeah, PET scan is to find where the cancer's hanging out. So it goes
Gotcha.
through the whole body, and then because it's radioactive, it glows. It shows up in the scans a lot easier. So this sugar is going to those locations that the cancer is feeding on. Now, this is a mainstream medical test.
So
This is
naturally, the inverse of that would be to starve those cells.
You might just come up with that crazy,
Why
scenario,
can't they
wouldn't you?
live together? Is my only argument in this whole thing is why can't they live together? Why can't we get trust back in our medical and in collaboration
Mm,
with
mm.
real life
So
things that
yeah,
are in shit? You can even argue there's mental placebo benefits of this too, and they really are. Like that's not, you know, wiggity wonk crap. That's real. Like there's medical
mm,
things are real, chemicals and drugs
mm,
are real, dietary and natural remedies are real, and even mental collaboration is real. Why? What's wrong with the marriage of those three things? Why not give yourself as like in genetics are real too, right? So like I could smoke a pack of cigarettes every day of my life, and if the genetics let me, I'd live till be 100. People do it all the time. If your genetics are
mm,
bad, you could smoke one cigarette and get lung cancer when you're 60 and die. So I mean, genetics are
mm,
something too, right? But why
mm,
not give
mm.
yourself every advantage you can have, just despite your your genetics? If you get cancer, why
Well,
not
we should be.
practice proper
We
mental and natural and medical habits? Why not just unleash them all? Give yourself the
yeah,
best fighting chance that they always say be the best version of you. You can't be Michael Jordan, but you can be the best version of Nathan Baws that you can be. Why not be your
correct.
best version?
Yeah. Look, there is no money in that. It's not. You can't
We're
put a
dealing with
patent
people's
on it.
lives here, man.
Yeah, but there's no money in it. So so I don't think you should go out and recommend those sort of things, right? That's what the system's telling
This
us.
will be my
But
last
that's all
episode
about
and be taken out here after
taking
this.
back that control. Taking back, not relying on an outside doctor or medical system or whatever. It's about taking responsibility back ourselves and absolutely doing what you've said, mate. Bringing all those elements into it and being responsible for ourselves. Because at the end of the day, we have the best say, and I don't think we should be influenced by the systems out there that don't have our best interests on hand. Yeah.
What a profound statement that you have there, sir. Um, Well, let's go. I've got a 3 question rapid fire round I want to go into here, kind of as we wind down, if you don't mind, and I want to just kind of get some short answers from you and see if there's any more fire I can stoke from you. But what would you say is like one piece of advice you might have gotten from a mentor, a family member, or a business partner, or anything that you would really say that really helped give me clarity? Or people would say, "What made you successful?" Well, you made you successful, but what was something that someone may have helped you with, or uh, let me start off with my dad as a post teen told me no one cares. When I would complain to him, he'd say, "You know what? No one cares. No one cares at all. No one gives a crap about your problems. Stop complaining." And I hated him for it for like a couple of years, and then like now I'm 40, and I'm like, that was like that's the only thing I can go back to. Like, dude, you were right. No
Mhm.
one cares. And the positive of that is like, what am I doing about it? What am I doing about it? What am I doing about it? And that was profound, and that really helped me. So, what would you say? Did you have any profound statements from a parent or mentor or teacher that you can say, man, that gives me good perspective today?
That's a good one. I think there's a couple. One would be that we should be spending more, like in the business side of things, anyway. That we should be spending more time on the business than in the business.
As an owner.
And yeah, yep,
Mm, mm-hmm.
exactly. So that that means being less operational and more strategic, and that's what I always try and do these days is spend at least 80% of my day on the business rather than in the business. So that's made a big impact. And then the other side was probably the marketing, which kind of relates to that anyway. What I found was I had no idea when I first went into business about marketing. Had no freaking idea, and we're not trained. We like as a naturopath, I was trained to be a great naturopath and to be a good be of massive value to people's health and moving them forwards. But we weren't told how do we get ourselves out there and how do we actually influence more people's health than just the one person and waiting for an organic referral. So it was really about learning, we need to spend a lot of time learning how to grow a business, how to market ourselves and put ourselves out there, because that's where the real value comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can help a lot more people than you can if more people know about you.
To make a connection as an owner, I have a business where people can receive tips or commission. And the thing I always tell them is when you're getting tip or commission and you have a client, my tip or commission as the owner is getting a review, getting a positive referral. And so just to connect what you said about working on the business and also marketing, I think as business owners, we really have to just be really put our blinders on from a marketing standpoint and say, how do we get our acquisition costs down?
Mm-hmm.
If I run a Google ad, it costs me $60 to get a customer, spends $200. I need it to only cost me $6, not $60. Well, how do I get it down? Google reviews, positive social media stories, word of mouth, all of those things. That's my commission. That's my tip. So as an owner, I always kind of think of that. Like we do a million things with marketing, but the number one thing at the end of the day is to lower what that cost may be. So that acquisition is really easy. We're credible. We're easily findable. We're easily convertible. And if I'm working on the business, the short time I'm in it, I make sure that they have that at top of mind functionally as a task to lower my CPA.
Perfect.
It's like all that matters.
Yeah.
It's like I just tell them, guys, I don't care about anything else. I do, but one person or job or school subject that you feel made a huge impact. For me, I dropped out of business school after 3 years, and faced the recession here in 08, took on 5 jobs. And then I went back to finish school a couple years later. And I still remember the 2 teachers and the 3 college courses that it's like, I could attribute 800 grand of revenue to this topic of this course. Like what for you, was there anything that stuck out in schooling or a person that really like gave you clarity? It's like, okay, school was meaningless, but organizational change 303 showed me how to do this in my business. What was there any one thing for you like that?
There was 3 actually, 3
Cool.
hugely standout influential people in my life. The first one was when I worked for the pharmacist, and he, as I mentioned, he was a phenomenal businessman and just huge entrepreneur. So I spent 8 years there just learning all about business and customer service and promotions and all sorts of things. Then the next phase of my life, I was in property, and property was all about sales. And I learned from a guy who wrote a book with Alan Peace, who was the original founder of body language. So learned so many sort of skill sets about body
cool.
language and that.
So I should uncross my feet. I should uncross my arms and feet and face you, or should we be side to side? We should be side to side, right? So I'm not coming at you.
Right.
That stuff's crazy, isn't it? Like that's psychology almost, isn't it?
Oh, it's awesome. Absolutely awesome.
Business owners need some type of psychology or minor in it and understand people.
Yeah.
That's cool.
If you can improve that rapport and connection, then
100%.
That's all about the body language side. And then later on, just a business mentor, business coach who was who really clarified some BS in my brain that needed to be aligned better. So those sort of 3 people all had a huge influence on what I do on a daily basis today.
I love like having those moments of like success plateaus in life where you're like, oh, like I'll tell people, dude, you know what taught me this? It was the business value curve in management, my capstone management course in this college with, Professor Timothy Nye. Like, it's like, I just having that connection, I think is so cool. And it's like, man, I wish I could just thank that person like more often. Like, thank you. That what you taught me here gave me this exact tangible result. Like, good job. You did a good job. Keep going. Then let's see. I had finally, just speed around here. What didn't we cover that you're, what do you want to promote, or what topic did you really want to touch that we just didn't touch on today? or I should say this morning for you or tonight for me?
No, look, no, nothing in particular. I just always like to see if there's any little strategies that I've come across that might help people. We have a bookkeeping business that we run with business growth in the US. We've got a few clients in the US and a few in Australia. And with that, what we do is we meet once a month and for free for anyone. We open it up to anyone. So if anyone has any business hurdles or challenges, and because sometimes being in business can be a very lonely journey. So, we just chat people from all different industries. We just chat and see if you got problems, how can we help you? How can we help get you out there more? How can we do marketing at zero budgets? Asking all those sort of questions of how we can just help each other overcome hurdles. So it's just a fun thing that we do and connect on a regular basis. So anyone is welcome to join.
Is that Numberfied or is that Business Profit Lab?
Numberfied. Yeah.
Numberfied
does that. Yeah. Yeah.
And
so
how can people find that? How can people join that? How can people
just connect through my website, nathanbaws.com, or my LinkedIn, same, Nathan Baws. Always happy to help anyone who's got a few challenges and collaboration. Love doing collaborations with people, and it's easy to do. You just got to get creative. That's another whole strategy if we're looking at ways of scaling businesses without any costs and any risks and doing it very quickly. The collaboration side is awesome for that.
And are you doing some public speaking too? Are you doing that locally? Or are you looking to do that more globally? Is that something that's on your plate?
Yeah, we've just registered with a couple of agencies in the US and the UK. So,
okay.
Yeah, keen to get out there. Love chatting and connecting like that. For sure.
Yeah, I'd like to connect you with. We have a guy who owns a speaking agency here in the Midwest in the U.S., Salem Speakers, that we had on the show maybe a number of months back that we could connect you with as well. And they've grown to be kind of a pretty big organization. So,
I'd love to take you up on that. That'd be awesome.
To make some connections with that as well. So,
appreciate
what link would you like to promote? Just your website or your podcast? What would you like us to promote here with the show?
Website's probably the best starting point because people can get in touch with me through a form there. So nathanbaws.com.
Beautiful. All right, everybody. Well, this has been another informative episode of No Brainer Podcast. Thank you to our wonderful guest, Mr. Nathan Baws here. Feel free to comment, like, and subscribe. We are on all these socials. You know where to find us. Any questions, please email Zach or I direct. But hey, thanks for joining us tonight, Nathan. And yeah, man, I hope you have a great start to your day there while we're asleep over here in the U.S.
Finishing up your one. Yeah.
All right.
Thanks for
your time. All right, signing out. Peace.
Cheers.